Our next award is the ACON President's Award. This award is bestowed to a person, group or organisation whose service has made a difference to the lives of LGBTI people in New South Wales. So please present to the stage ACON President, Dr. Justin Coonan.
Good evening. It's wonderful to see so many of your faces here, many familiar ones and some new ones as well. I'd also like to thank Auntie Millie for welcoming us onto Gadigal land, as you've done, Auntie Millie, for some years now. And each time you do, you remind us that we're all in this together. And as LGBTI people continue to fight for respect and dignity, your presence tonight remind us that Aboriginal people have been doing that on this land for far longer than we have. We learn from you, and we're very glad to count you as one of our family. And so I too acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects. I acknowledge as well, particularly in the context of this award, our own LGBTI elders who fought for dignity and equality for nigh on 50 years and whose efforts have, in a very real sense, paved the way for the dramatic victories that our communities achieved, particularly in recent times. This award takes us back to a time when homosexual sex was illegal across the country and people were put in jail as a result, when anti-discrimination laws were unheard of, when doctors could without question carry out aversion therapy and could perform other medical experiments on homosexuals with court approval, where no publicly recognised gay or lesbian community existed, and where there was no visible place for people like us to find support. Against that backdrop, news of the Stonewall riots in New York in June 1969 reached our shores, and following further reports of gay pride marches which took place across America on the first anniversary of the riots, a decision was taken to found an organisation dedicated to removing the stigma that was still attached to homosexuality and to provide a visible face for the gay and lesbian community in Australia. And Camp Inc., the Campaign Against Moral Persecution, was born. The Australian, of all places, announced the formation of CAMP on the 10th of September 1970, and on the 19th of September, it published interviews and photographs of Camp Inc.'s founders, John Ware and Christabel Pole, the first open depiction of homosexual people in Australian media history. Camp Inc.'s first formal public meeting was held in a small church hall in Balmain on the 6th of February 1971. And we're thrilled that the person who chaired that meeting, Ian Black, is with us tonight. I think that deserves an applause. A special report in the bulletin tells us that 94 people attended that meeting and that by that stage, CAMP already had over 400 paid-up members with rapid plans to expand into other states. There's certainly no time this evening, unless they face the music, to recount the full history of what happened in the years that followed, except to acknowledge the legacy that Camp Inc. has left in terms of the organisations and institutions which continue to shape our community today. Phone a Friend, which became the Gay and Lesbian Counselling Service developed under Camp's umbrella, and the Nighttime March, which became the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, came at the suggestion of Camp members. In fact, the entire movement for the rights that we now take for granted, decriminalisation, adoption, anti-discrimination, and so many more, had its genesis in the efforts of these brave activists nearly 50 years ago. Along with Ian, I'm very shortly going to invite onto the stage two more of the very early members of CAMP to accept this award on behalf of the organisation. Robin Plaister, who was on the executive between 1973 and 1980, and Peter Duval, another foundational member, who with his partner Bond set up Phone a Friend in their house in 1973. We're honoured to have you all here tonight, and I also acknowledge Robin Kennedy, tonight nominated for the Community Hero Award, who was also heavily involved in CAMP, and Sue Wills, co-president from 1972, who almost made it here tonight, as well as any other CAMP members who are present this evening. To all of you, as well as those members of CAMP who are no longer with us, all we can say really is thank you. The spark you lit nearly 50 years ago is now a bonfire, whose light and warmth touches not just our own community, but all those in Australia and further afield who continue your fight for a society which values freedom, visibility, equality, inclusion, not just for LGBTI people, for everyone. And so Ian, Robin, Peter, it's my absolute pleasure to invite you to the stage to accept the President's Award on behalf of CAMP.
Dear friends, community members, little did we know 48 years ago that we would have awards like we have tonight. Neither did we know that we would have such an enormous, large community being out and proud and showing our diversity. I would like to thank ACON's President, Dr. Justin Coonan, for recognition of Camp Inc.'s pioneering role in gay and lesbian rights movement in Australia and in promoting visibility for our community for the first time in Australia. Furthermore, I would like to acknowledge the founders of Camp Inc., the Campaign Against Moral Persecution, Christabel Pole and John Ware. It was 1970 when they courageously founded the first Australian national homosexual rights movement. And I want to stress it did become a national organisation. This prestigious ACON award puts an end to the widely held but misplaced belief that Australia's lesbian and gay rights movement started in 1978. It was not the first Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. It was 8 years prior, in 1970, when Camp Inc. was born. I would like to pay my respect and honour other Camp Inc. Foundation members. Some we have not been able to locate, and others are no longer with us. To name just a few of those, pioneers, who are Peter Turbilko and my beloved, now deceased, Peter Bonsall-Boone, better known as Bon. Finally, in 2 years' time, in 2020, Camp Inc. goes gold. It will be the 50th anniversary of Camp Inc.'s founding. The groundbreaking work of Australia's first national political organisation for lesbian and gay rights people must be celebrated. It was between 1970 and 1978 that Camp Inc. played an instrumental and significant role in raising the visibility of lesbian and gay people in Australia. It advocated for our rights. It also laid the foundation for where we as a community are today. In order to celebrate the 50th anniversary in 2020, we need your energy, your help, and your support. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I came to camp in 1972 after a checkerboard program which featured both Peter DeVal and Peter Bonsall-Boone, as well as Sue Wills and Gabby Antolovich. Sue Wills was the second co-president. And one of the things that really attracted me was, one, community, but two, the values of equality. And part of the constitution of camp when it was set up was that they make sure that there was inclusion of both males and females in all of the not only political work that was done, but that the needs would be fulfilled as well. So not only did we look at legislation and fighting legislation, but we looked at issues that specifically dealt with women, like lesbian mother custody cases. And we worked together on these right the way through, and it's an honour really to have this award given to CAMP when I spent my whole time enjoying what I was doing in terms of the political involvement for the number of years that I was involved. Thank you very much.
As you heard, I chaired the very first meeting of CAMP, and chairs are not supposed to say very much, so I'll keep it short. It's so touching to be remembered for something that one did 50 years ago. It reminds me of that song from The Sound of Music, "You must have done something good," and I like to think we did. Thank you.